pendulum swung way too far when we got to the point where we were doing open offices.
A lot of things that we learned at home, we're now bringing back when we do go to the office.
We have to make them destinations now. I think we have to compel people to go back to the office as opposed to force them.
What I'm seeing is that people are redesigning the spaces less around being in the office and being at your desk all day, and more about making the office an attractive place to come in order to facilitate a collaborative discussion.
Greetings and welcome to this third in a series of 5 IMCCA podcasts to wrap up 2023. I'm David Danto representing the IMCCA today, and I'm with my fellow IMCCA board member, Rich Sasson.
This week's subject is designing the future-ready office. Has the pandemic and the new ways we've worked to survive through it forced a permanent change in how successful offices will be designed in the future? Let's hear what IMCCA member firms and industry analysts have to say about it.
Now I think there's smatterings of leaders and companies that are making those changes, making the soft seating areas, making the village greens, ensuring that the network in their home, in their office, it matches their home. Who would have thought that? When I have a gig up and down at home, and I can go into a branch office and have 20 meg, why would I do that?
It's an answer that I hate, but it depends. Right. It depends on what your employer and what the company wants and out of their employees. If it's 100% of the time in person, well, then the design looks like this, right? It might look like 2018, 2017 design. However, there is this new iteration where it's a hybrid model or it's an all remote model, and we come together once a quarter. And those are drastically different designs because of the work being done 3 days a week, 2 days a week, or once a quarter.
I think the new office is going to be optimized for meetings because people need a space to be able to collaborate and to work with colleagues. And that's the one thing that the office can provide that working from home can't provide. So the office really needs to be optimized for encouraging people to work together and share ideas.
I think one thing that we could agree on is the open office is probably still dead. I don't think anybody designing offices today wants that open office. There's still, we understand now that there's a need for being around people and being able to get our work done.
I think the one thing that we have to look at in designing the future office is it has to be flexible. So by the way, besides having the right technology, we used to call them multi-purpose rooms, but we really didn't mean that. But it has to be flexible where we can say today is going to be a whiteboarding session and everybody needs to see it. Tomorrow is just going to be a conference and people are going to collaborate together. Maybe on the third day, we're going to have nobody remote and just work. So I think one of the other things is, besides design, it's flexibility and easy to use technology.
I'm seeing organizations thinking about what the office is for. If they're going to invest all this money in a space, like what's the actual business purpose? And I see organizations wanting people to get together. They want to have that collaboration. They want to have that in person. But they do have to have a compelling space and experience for the people to want to come in. And the best people get to pick and choose their role. So they'll pick and choose and work somewhere where that appreciates them and gives them the opportunity. So I think, yes, we're at the early days of this because you've got long leases, you've got long commitments to buildings. But I think certainly when you look at people designing new spaces, they're thinking about collaborative areas, they're thinking about experience, they're thinking about events. They're not thinking about cram as many desks in as possible, be that cubes or open space.
The office is now starting to follow on with that, which is, how do we put together more collaborative systems? How do we put whiteboards in more areas so that people can sit and they can draw? How do we video enable areas that, before the pandemic would never have seen a camera, would never have seen the light of day in video because video was much more focused on, I'm going to sit at my desk all day or I'm going to sit in conference rooms all day. But now they're putting together cameras in front of whiteboards in common areas and that type of stuff so people can huddle around and all get together while still embracing a remotely connected office. they're getting a lot more soft seating areas and areas in break rooms where people can sit in non-threatening environments and much more social environments and share ideas and share concepts and take it forward. And then the desks are now moving into much more of a social environment as well, where people can sit at their desk and turn to their neighbor and talk to their neighbor about what they need to do and sit there, but at the same time sit there and focus on the work that they need to do while they're there doing it.
I had a lot of clients in office spaces who really didn't have all of their conference rooms equipped with technology to be able to communicate at a distance. They had a select few conference rooms equipped. And people need to realize it's not just an issue of technology, it's an issue of environment. By that, I mean lighting, acoustics, heating, ventilating, and air conditioning, ways that not only does the equipment work for you, but the environment in which you're in enhances the equipment.
If it's a really nice environment, with plants and background noise reduction and nice areas to work, that helps to get me in. I need a quiet space to work. I need a nice space to work. But again, the bigger thing is the people. That's why everyone is saying it's all about meeting rooms. Every space in the office is a meeting space. Rooms are being repurposed as meeting rooms, because if I'm coming in, it's because I want to sit across the table from people. And that, of course, means that the flex workers, they have to be on video.
We need to design for having more people remote. But in addition, especially if your organization is going to try to mandate or encourage or persuade people to come into the office more so than they would choose, then I think designing it means putting some incentives. So whether that's having a barista or free food or super funky, cozy chairs or collaborative spaces that are filled with, whether it's whiteboards or digital whiteboards or tools that they don't have at the remote location, so that they are encouraged to come into the office.
Whereas pre-pandemic, we looked at boardrooms and conference rooms in bowling alley styles, long tables, display at the end, not much meeting equity, and that's a very popular phrase these days. Now what we're starting to see is a completely different configuration for how these rooms are being set up. More campfire, more curved desks to include everyone at the table, so to speak, literally and figuratively, and more cameras. And this is really important. This is something that we see a lot in our business. More cameras.
I think some of the key differences between the pre-pandemic office and the post-pandemic office is the way people will be using the spaces. What is bringing you in the first place is going to be something different than, prior to the pandemic.
I think one of the biggest things is we've taken a different approach to each of the offices, depending upon who's using it, right? Chicago is heavily for us a development site. And so we've designed it with a view to who are the developers and how would they like to use it, versus Penn 1 in New York, which is very much a site for customer interactions, partner interactions. It's sort of more of an outward facing thing versus, yet again, a slightly different use case down in Atlanta. And so we needed to think about that as we've gone into the designs of the buildings.
I think what we look at, obviously, number one is a reduction in the respective outlay. Offices will continue to exist, but they may not be of the same size or the same scale. I won't need as many of the spaces. The second part would be is that, again, we're seeing a massive interest or increase in flexible spaces.
But in order to drive people back to the office without a mandate is really to have different types of office spaces to accommodate the way people want to work. And I think we're looking at much less of the complex integrated conference rooms and much more of the smaller huddle spaces and workspaces that drive the collaboration component.
We have a conference room, and we need to replace the camera setup in that room, simply because it does not meet the needs of hybrid meetings anymore. Right? It's not smart enough, quite honestly. And we need something in that room to be able to track faces and to pan appropriately and to keep the speaker in the frame, right? Because we're doing so many remote meetings anymore, and that's absolutely required for those kinds of things.
That type of behavioral teaching, I don't know how we get not back to it, because I don't know if we ever had. It's just that technology makes it seem a little further away. You know, those, and again, I don't know if it's soft skills or not, because soft skills we often hear about as it relates to sales, but soft skills are things I think we can all benefit from. How do we interact with one another? And I think we've gotten, again, in our personal lives, ATMs, right? We don't want to go into the bank. Go to a restaurant, you can punch in your order. You barely even have to see your waitress. You don't even have to see your waitress or waiter to pay, because you can do that on the table now. We get further and further away from actually engaging with other people. Some people like me, that actually works out, because I like to be a hermit at times. But it is a skill that you are not born with. It's a skill you have to learn, how to interact with people.
You just don't know. And so I think, again, as you move forward, you just see, you know, there are things that we're not even thinking about yet, but maybe someone else is. And we need to say, well, you know, how does this impact, you know, adults?
We visited some customer office, like they don't have any mandatory office date, and then their office is empty except the meeting room. So that, you know, all the no employee comes to just only for conduct their, you know, their own job, but then many people come to the office for the meeting. And but in the meeting room, all the meeting room turn on the Teams meeting. So, you know, everybody wants to get together in person for the brainstorm session, but it's impossible to, you know, all the team members come to at the same time, same physical space at one time anymore. So that's why, you know, consider how the, you know, hybrid brainstorm session should be designed is going to be really important topic in the future, I think.
That's it for this week's 2023 Wrap Podcast.
Join us next week when our topic will be the importance of education in a post-pandemic world.